I'm Brad Stevens. We're going to talk about the proactive use of BlueDragon and what we're doing here at Lawrence Livermore. I have taken BlueDragon a few times. Back in, was it 2018 when we were playing with Post-its, taped to the walls. And then I had a colleague of mine, we did the BlueDragon method the following Monday, right after class. So we jumped right in and started using BlueDragon immediately after being trained there. And I've been using it since then, anytime I've been part of a causal analysis. So I've got several of these under my belt. I really appreciate being able to work with Rob and his team to watch them do it and learn from them and see how they handle the interview sessions and manipulate the chart and whatnot. And I learned a lot from doing that. So if anybody gets the opportunity to do that, I highly recommend jumping on the chance to be part of their team doing an analysis. So with that, we've been always kind of talking about doing BlueDragon proactively and not just reactively as a causal analysis tool. And we want to look ahead and see what we can do to try and get in front of things. So depending on how this is going to play today, there we go. What we're going to do is bring up the bow tie risk assessment model that Rob had spoken about a couple sessions ago. We're going to talk about the target that we're going to aim for, look at the data, generate our LOIs, and then go over some of the challenges that this proactive approach presented, because this is the kind of first time we're seeing it and moving through. So for a reminder for everybody, we've got the bow tie risk assessment model that Rob presented a while back. And the right side is the root cause analysis side, where we typically spend and do the BlueDragon analysis from. But what we want to move towards is the left side and doing these things proactively so we can hopefully strengthen our defenses, stop holes before they become a problem, and move forward from there. So in this assessment, we were really keying in on, for this one, looking at our training and analysis data. And we were honing in on this to see specifically, are we setting up our employees for failure? So what we were going after here is essentially air precursors. So we were looking at air precursors for an area at Livermore to see, are we setting up our employees for failure? And is there something we can, hopefully do about it? So we mined data using our issues corrective action tracking system for air precursors. So we do HPI or HOP analyses out there, and we log those in our issues tracking system. That gives us data out there. So for this facility, we looked for any of these analyses that were performed and pulled the air precursors out of that. We also did surveys utilizing on Rob's site the Pareto analysis for air likely situations survey, and got real-time data with respect to the current workers and did some data analysis there. And straight out of their Rob's template, we would get data. This is the default data out of Rob's template, but you get the Pareto analysis done for you. So you populate this chart with the real data that you gather, and it'll do the work for you there. So thank you, Rob, for providing that tool for us to help us along doing the Pareto analysis there. So what we did is, through our issues tracking system, gathering the human performance air precursors that have already been identified out there, we ran Pareto analyses across the board on our previous data and our current data. We also took a stab at all of the root cause analyses done for the area that had the DOE cause codes applied, because the A3 set of cause codes are human performance related. And we ran an analysis on those as well. And then we used all of that data to generate our LOIs. We really just take the peaks in the Pareto analysis, to generate our LOI. And it's really basic to get the question there. It's what's causing, in this case, time pressure, which is that first thing on this short list of air precursors. And time pressure is universal, and it's great to get the conversation started. So all of the peaks from our analyses became our LOIs, and that's what we are using currently to go through our interview session with, because this is an active deal we're doing right now. So I'm not sharing our actual live data because we're still working on it, but this is what we're doing here. So what is causing this feature? And throughout there, it set up some challenges, because most of the time when we're doing a causal analysis, people are very, very familiar with the event and they all know why we're here. And it became difficult. I thought we did a decent job setting this up and giving them their questions coming in. Yeah, I thought it was well set up enough so they had an idea of what they were being interviewed for. But when we went to ask the question, what's causing time pressure, we kept getting questions like, well, with respect to what event? I don't know. This depends. And what we really want is day-to-day work. And it took a while for the people to relax a bit to start answering the questions and going forth from there. And then the floodgates open. Once they did, it sort of switched from a quiet set to a very vocal set, which had a ton of information handy. And it became difficult on our end to capture it all, because I didn't want to cut it off, but it was good information. It was just really broad. So we were, on one hand, kind of scrambling to get all the data captured, and on the other hand, wanting to slow it down at the same time. So we were receiving a lot of broad answers because we were asking these questions in a broad manner. So with this setup, I might try to tweak it a little differently if I do this again, and try to hone in the targets. Obviously, with the people we have on the call, if you all have any suggestions on how to tighten that up for a broad proactive approach, we would definitely appreciate that. The other thing that we ran across there was less urgency, because this is proactive and we don't have the hard due date real soon. We got to get this causal analysis done. It's due in ORPS or in NTS, or some other agency is expecting this. We don't have this here. So we're a proactive approach. So people will reprioritize their schedules and stick with the meetings that are already established. So when you're trying to set up a meeting with 7 or 8 management level individuals, it's harder to do. So the timelines that you may be used to with the causal analysis side might need to be, your expectations might need to be adjusted, because you're coming at this from a proactive approach. And it may not be super urgent for that manager who might actually have a fire they're trying to put out. So that has been another challenge for me personally, because I'm used to being able to get these through in a month to 2, and it's carrying on because we're trying to get onto everybody's calendar here. So from there, that is where we're at using this. We are using the bow tie risk assessment model. We're gathering data, and it's using that data there to generate our LOIs. And then while doing it, because it's this proactive approach, it's a kind of my first time going through it. So it's got some unique challenges that I just wasn't expecting. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. And I don't have the chat open here on my screen. Well, I don't know if anybody came up with ones, but go for it. Go ahead and raise your hand or open up the mic and ask away.
Fantastic, Brad. Well, first of all, I applaud Lawrence Livermore for taking the jump into the left side of the bow tie risk assessment model. I've been waiting for a long time to convince our folks that that is the best use of your resources. You really will get a lot more return on investment on those resources than waiting for things to happen where you lose control of your destiny. And I wanted to say in the chat, I put the error likely situation survey, the latest and greatest from BlueDragon, that has an explanation for each one of those line items. Time pressure, what is that? What does it mean? So it's a multi-page handout there. And also the Pareto analysis that Brad alluded to, there it is in the chat. There's a spreadsheet, download it, use it. And with that, we have Betsy done.
All right.
And
Hey,
Brad, go take the screen off so we can see everyone's face. And
all right, will do.
yeah, just maybe a question for you on kind of keeping the momentum going on something like this. I've often found that like when you're reacting to something, you know, your management's all engaged and everybody because you really want to get to a result. But you know, on the proactive side, unfortunately, it's like sort of like takes a back seat often. And so I'm wondering how you actually sort of kept this front and center to actually get people's attention, like while you were working through it.
So with this, we have locally a project management software that we're using, and we have this added as a project. So my local management is tracking this, and I just had to update it today, say, here's where we are. Here's where the next schedules are. So that sets the overall timetable. So that's how we're doing it locally. With respect to the group that chartered the analysis, we're keeping them abreast of what's going on, but they're also the management that's going to be on the last interview set. So their interviews will be coming up.
excellent. Any other questions for Brad? I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to hear if you can share any results down the road, Brad. That would be outstanding in a month or two, perhaps.
All right.
And again, download those two handouts that I just put on the chat. That's exactly what we're talking about. Any other questions? I think Betsy hit on the best question, you know, how to gain momentum on something like this, because people are in their day-to-day firefighting mode and they don't often see the return on investment of freeing up resources to do something that's not on fire. Well, that's a bad culture. We don't need to be rewarding firefighting and jumping on hand grenades. That is not the right culture. I'll tell you something else about culture that I see too often. You can reflect on this if it's true at your place, but the problem that I see across the board is that organizations, it seems like they don't really want to solve problems. They want to get past problems. And that's a problem. So where I used to work, commercial nuclear, the culture was that if you came around with a root cause analysis, it was, let me pause, how can I help you? Because it's that important, we need to solve this problem. How can I help you? We know the benefits, we see the quote return on investment for dedicating some resources, you know, a few hours here or there, and they're willing to help, as opposed to, I'm going to find any excuse to, first of all, not do a root cause. I'll talk about that in my presentation. So any excuse not to do a root cause, and then any excuse not to play, not to participate. I'm always going to be too busy, right? And BlueDragon requires full participation. And also, I must say, you have to want to solve the problem. If you have folks in the organization that want to keep quiet and not really tell us what's really going on, we'll never solve a problem. And you're doomed. You're dooming the organization to continue to experience many, many repeat events. All right. Anyone else? Comments or questions for Brad? Well, Brad, with that, thank you so much. Really appreciate you doing this. And
no problem.
Of course, the minute he mentioned that, I roped him into this. I think Brad might have casually mentioned they're doing something like this, and I put a hook on him and threw him on here on this meeting. So thanks for letting me do that to you, Brad. Okay,